Good morning. I hope that Vegas was kind to all of you last night, but it's 8:30 in the morning, so I'm going to try and keep it really light. So first things first, you can tell from the title of this talk that one of the things that Daniel and I talked about was how to think a little bit differently about extracting commercial value from artificial intelligence, because most of the folks in the room, I presume, are sort of in the data engineering, data science domains. And one of the things that I would love to impress upon you as kind of a starter and a amuse-bouche for your conference is this idea of focusing on customer experience and having sort of a product owner mindset for how to approach development of AI solutions. So first things first, let's agree there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to commercialize artificial intelligence. This particular lovely bit of data visualization is from McKinsey. It's the Executives AI Playbook. What they are saying here is that there's between, call it 10 and 15 trillion dollars worth of value to be unlocked in the broader economy from use of artificial intelligence. A couple of things to note about this. One, and this has been replicated by a couple other firms. There was a PwC study that was similar, it said $15 trillion, fine. A couple of things to note. One, most of the value is surprisingly not in the use cases that people think of. It's not necessarily just in digital. I come from a banking background. People think of fraud detection or digital as the key use cases in our space. I would argue that sales and marketing, and McKinsey agrees, so goodness for me, because they've got a lot more PhDs than I do, that there is tremendous amount of opportunity in sales, marketing, customer focusing artificial intelligence, and to Daniel's point, augmented intelligence in terms of driving commercial value. Okay, so there's a lot of money to be had. You're all here for the same reason. Why are we struggling so much? I, in true analyst fashion, took two data points that make data lie a little bit, so the denominators are different here, but I thought it was kind of fun that 77% of people are working on artificial intelligence and 76% of people are struggling. That was, take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. I said two things that were unrelated, but it makes, I think, a relevant point, which is nobody would be in this room if we had all figured it out. In fact, by the way, notice the tiny aerospace and defense bubble there. The reason that they think that there's no value there is apparently the rocket scientists have it all figured out. So we need to just go hire people from aerospace. Okay, there's a lot of value. Everybody seems to be struggling with this. Why am I talking to you? Daniel was kind enough to share in the intro. I'm the Chief Data Analytics Officer at Citizens Financial Group. I've been doing that job for approximately 6-7 weeks. So that is, just to humble myself, that has nothing to do with my experience in this space. Prior to that, though, I have spent a long time in financial services. And in particular, a lot of what informed this session is from JP Morgan Chase, where I was the founding member of the sales science organization for all the retail businesses and consumer businesses over there. And then I was also the head of product for Salesforce. And those two things kind of gave me a little bit of a perspective about how to take and scale artificial intelligence for commercial use cases. So that's me. So, okay, everybody's doing AI, there's lots of value, everybody's struggling. What are you running into? I put up 4 key things. There's actually a fifth that's my little Easter egg at the end. But there are 4 key things that I think people really run into when trying to scale artificial intelligence and extract value. The first I cannot help you with is talent. I'm sorry. If I had figured out how to acquire all of the brightest minds in artificial intelligence, I wouldn't be here either, because I'd be printing money for my CEO and on an island somewhere. That's the hardest thing, period, is getting the right folks, getting them trained. We are all competing for the same precious resource. Fine. Let's hold that aside. The three other things that you're very likely to run into should be relatively rote with this group: data quality, organizational readiness, and technology integrations. And so I'll talk a little bit about each one of these and how I personally believe that a CX mindset and a product owner mindset for artificial intelligence can help you overcome some of the typical things that you're going to run into, and share a couple of stories about how I've found some of those pitfalls ahead of you, so hopefully learn from my failure. So first, on data quality, everybody's familiar with the absolutely horrible sort of term, garbage in, garbage out. I would like to advance that. I personally believe that garbage in is roughly equivalent to a dumpster fire. By the way, it's an 8:30 in the morning talk. I had to have a GIF of a dumpster fire because it's everybody's kind of recovering. So good morning. Here we are. So I would argue that bad data is more dangerous than no data. Particularly as we get into a place where we'll hear from Shri in a second. Low code, no code, automated AI. Some of the toolkit is getting really, really good for citizen data scientists and particularly early career professionals who are now just graduating into our field. It's really, really easy to believe the machine. And just a personal story on this, the intern class from the summer just did a presentation with me the other day, and they came in with a gains chart on a model that they built to predict attrition that showed that they could predict 50% of attrition with the first 1 or 2% of sample, and I was like, come on. No dice, no chance. And it turns out that they had a data quality problem, and I know that because I've done this for enough years, but as new entrants come into the marketplace and as we try and broaden our talent pool, back to point number one, we have to be really, really careful about this, and I think data quality is probably the most underinvested problem for most of our companies. So we'll start there. Talk in a second about how we can kind of approach that. Second, I think the other thing that I've run into regularly is that most people have a very pop culture focused set of references for artificial intelligence. So tell me if this feels familiar to you guys, right? On the left, I had fun picking things. So Skynet, iRobot, HAL 9000, if you want to go a little bit further back. Or my daughter's personal favorite, the captain from WALL-E. There are myriad examples of places where AI is kind of is portrayed as this thing to be feared, this overarching thing. And by the way, that's why Patrick wants all of your data from the app, right? I'm sure it will be safe. Don't worry. Kidding. So there is a pervasive mindset amongst many executives, especially who are not in the technical space, about this is something that's kind of dangerous. It's risky. It's not something that should be trusted. And worse yet, in many cases, AI is starting to replace jobs. And so, again, talk in a second. The second thing that I find is that on the opposite side of the fence, particularly in tech and data science, folks in this room, and I'm sure mostly the folks that work for you, there is a belief that, I love the term automagically, but that AI will solve the problem, right? You don't have to worry about data, it's fine. The algorithm will do it. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And so we have to be really careful to also not be too bought in to our own solutions, too bought into how good a really deep net is at sussing out patterns in data, because if the data was wrong in the first place or missing or what have you, you'll get trash. Back to this. So anyway, those couple of things. The last thing is technology integrations. So again, I had so much fun picking pictures for this, by the way. If you can't tell, this was just a labor of love for mine. two things that can often happen with technology, and they're variations on a theme. One is, I built you exactly what you wrote down in your requirements or definition of done or what have you. This is my favorite picture in the deck. A pizza with cookies baked right on top of it. I did exactly what you asked. You're welcome. and that is not a breakdown of technology. I want to make sure that for the folks in the room who come from a technology organization or a data engineering organization, what have you, that's not me digging on you. That's me saying that we, as data scientists, did not do a good job of articulating what our problem was, what we're trying to solve for, right? And it's mostly because folks that sit in chairs like mine and yours don't come from a background of having been a product owner or leading technology teams and so forth. We just try and solve problems with math, right? We avoided English classes. And so that's thing one. Thing two is it's going to take 3-4 years and $20 million. Happens all the time, and I think the main reason there is that we just kind of get out of over our skis on the scope of the project. Okay, so what a lovely way to start your morning. Here's all the stuff that can go wrong with artificial intelligence. I'm just kidding. So my pitch to you and the thing that I would like to leave you with is all three of those problems and a number of others are really well addressed by some customer experience or product-focused design principles, right? So having a laser focus on the exact problem that you're trying to solve can help tremendously with data quality. How? One, you're not waiting for the perfect data monolith. You're not waiting for target state. You're simply waiting for a built-to-suit, readily available data set that solves your specific problem. And then if you do that in flight over time, you can kind of start to build toward your target state as long as you've got the right patterns and so forth. I would also argue that much like with technology, from a data quality perspective, if you can hone in on the specific scope of a problem, you don't have to wait for the longer-term, gigantic scoped data quality problems to be fixed. Similarly, one of the things that, and so by the way, personal example of this, when I was at JPMC, this sort of portfolio of programs that I ran was one of the most commercially impactful deployments of AI at the company. And one of the main sort of, I don't want to call it a model, but solutions that we built was a staffing and book of business assignment behavioral thing for bankers, right? We've got 20,000 folks sitting in branches. We need to make sure that they're kind of doing the right stuff and assigned the right way, et cetera. And so using this kind of mindset, we not only were able to hyper-focus our needs for data, we were able to hyper-contain the scope for tech, but we were also able to bring some of our technology partners to the table in the design of those algorithms and start to think ahead about some of the technical hurdles we were going to run into when we started deploying this as a model as a service kind of thing out to the field to make decisions. But I think the thing that I was most surprised and excited by is that much like a product owner would do, we put the model in the hands of the folks that were making staffing decisions. So everybody from branch managers to regional directors to planning leads, finance professionals, right? None of whom have any technical skill set whatever, but they were able to see both the data used, the drivers of, in some cases, one of our models was a little bit opaque, but the general kind of impact of some of the variables that were used, and then also the recommendation. And they helped us catch myriad data quality issues. They helped us get ready for some of the technical hurdles that we were going to run into. And oh, by the way, they became advocates. So from an organizational readiness perspective, I didn't have to go into the room and pitch the idea of using artificial intelligence to optimize staffing and banker behaviors and book of business assignment and leads and all that kind of stuff. I had partners who did it for me. So again, the the hope here is that as you guys kind of take this back and get into some of the more technical sessions that will follow, if you can keep kind of top of mind that idea of being a product owner, focusing on customer experience, focusing on outcome, I think it'll be very useful. It certainly was to me. I also want to acknowledge this is not a wildly new concept. So the best data products are already starting to become this, right? So think about the way that, for example, Bloomberg produces data that is so good that people will buy it, right? They manage data as a product. Data as a product is actually now the second most common search term after data as a service, and by the way, you can see kind of the exponential growth and interest in it over the last few years. There is a real move in data toward this same kind of mindset, and like I said, what I would argue is that hopefully all of you and certainly the team that I am now responsible for 7 weeks in will benefit from kind of operating that way with artificial intelligence solutions and so forth. So last thing, here's my Easter egg. I wanted to leave you guys with something sort of motivational because first speaker at a conference, everybody is hopefully not too hungover, but let's be honest, it's 8:30 in the morning in Vegas, so I like my odds. I don't mean to, that's not judgmental. And so I went to a website called inspirobot.com, which is an artificial intelligence that develops bespoke motivational posters, and this is what I got. And I loved it. Nobody's ever said something quite so nice to me. You're perfect, just like a boat. I can't explain it, but it's magic. So the only other Easter egg here I would leave you with is there are also places where artificial intelligence isn't the answer. I see more hammers looking for a nail in this field than I would like to, and it's one of those things where we as leaders in this field need to make sure and rein things in and kind of keep tight on places where we can be successful and where we can't. So this was a failure, I'm sorry. So in order to leave you with something a little bit more legitimately motivational, I looked to a designer from the 1950s who was a big part of the mid-century modern movement, a gentleman named Charles Eames, who designed, by the way, one of the most luxurious chairs I have ever had the pleasure of sitting in, and it is appropriately expensive. Not something I will buy, but it's lovely. And that is, he said, everything is designed, but few things are designed well. And so my hope for you is that as you learn about tools and data and algorithms and all of those sort of things that you can keep in the back of your mind throughout the conference and as you take this back to your day jobs, this idea that artificial intelligence is a really wonderful thing if well designed. So thank you, and I hope everybody has a great conference. Feel free to look me up and connect on LinkedIn. I will see everybody at happy hour and at the breaks and so forth. But